Good afternoon. Just to make sure, let me know. Can you hear me? Can you see the screen? Just say yes on the chat so we can start it. Great. مرحبا فيكم في ال M251 Object-Oriented Programming using Java. So before I start, I would like to know, is there anyone who's just speak English in the class? If there is anyone who's just speak English in the class, say yes, I just speak English. Okay, Dana. Anyone else? Okay, so in this case, I have to explain everything in English. I'll try to explain some of the things in Arabic, but don't worry, Dana, I will just translate the parts again. Which is mean I will never say Arabic, something in Arabic that haven't been mentioned in English. And then another notice, I just started 10 minutes after because a lot of you is just entering with not the university email, which is not allowed anymore. I just accept this in this lecture. I see now we have more than 133 participants, and this lecture is supposed to have only 100 students, which is mean we have more students than expected. And the new rule of the university that students are not allowed to enter to the class if they don't come with the university email. So even if you write your name, your university ID, I cannot let you in next lecture if you don't come with your university email. If you have any problem with your university email, please contact the IT support. So المرة الجاية إن شاء الله كلكم تحاولوا تدخلوا بالإيميل اللي حق الجامعة. جميع الطلاب اللي داخلين as a guest اليوم just this meeting ممكن أنكم تدخلوا as a guest. من المحاضرة الجاية أي طالب يدخل بغير الإيميل الجامعي ما راح يقدر يدخل. إذا عندك أي مشاكل في الإيميل ممكن تتواصل مع الدعم الفني. Okay, so في البداية welcome to M251 Object-Oriented Programming using Java. My name is Fatimah Alsayoud, and this is my email. Contact me anytime with a question, concern, anything. You are more than welcome to send an email. But one more thing. Sorry for Dana, I just wrote this in Arabic. I'll translate it in English. So please, 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 if you're sending an email, just use your university email. Try to use a clear and meaningful title. And I preferred to write M251 on the top of the title before you write your question. So even if you write it in Arabic, I don't mind. Whatever language you prefer to write the question or the email, it's okay with me. But you have to make clear title. I really don't like to have an empty title emails and then any clear question. So I have to ask then which course you are talking about. You answer, and then I ask, okay, what do you mean about this? What do you mean about that? Write everything clearly once so I can reply as fast as possible. Okay, so لما تكتبوا ايميل رجاء حاولوا تخلوه واضح، تكتبوا العنوان واضح، تكتبوا اسم الشعبة، اسم المقرر، إيش تحتاجوا بالضبط، على أساس أقدر أرد right away. It save your time and my time. And that's it يعني. Otherwise you're welcome to email me anytime. Okay. So the section is huge. So please be with me. I know it is online, but this course I wouldn't like to make you scared, but it's quite heavy. So you need to be with me from the first class. Please, please, please. I'll try to do my best to clarify everything's on the course, and you can stop me. Maybe like I'll put a time after each section for questions, and just to try to understand it clearly from the first meeting. So for today, we will do week 1 here, and week 1 and week 2 is just a revision of 105. That's the university rule of not allowing students, I have to admit, whoever entering all the time. So just excuse me. Okay. Okay, so this week we will review some concept that you already took with 105. I know some of you maybe forget some information and so on, so we'll try to slow it down, but it's not as, like, we will not cover everything from scratch, okay? So week 1 and week 2 is gonna just to be a revision of what you already took. Then we will talk about objects and class. We will talk about it a little bit today, but in more detail in meeting 3, okay? Then we will talk about thinking in object and array list. And then about inheritance, class inheritance, and then in class, abstract classing, interfaces. So until week 7, everything's come until week 7 is we're gonna to go with the midterm. So let's try to get as much as possible from those presentation before the meeting. We will get some other topic later. We'll see it on its time, okay? So meeting 1. Introduction to programming using Java. First, we will do some introduction. We will have the Java background. Just let me see if anyone on the lobby. Okay, so then a Java background. Then we will talk about how the system's running on Java. We'll talk about the data type, which is, I believe you already covered some of it in 105, about statements and scope of operators, conditional processing, if statements, and so on. Okay, so introduction. This is just some theoretical information. It's not that important, but sorry, I have to record the lecture. So just give me a second. Start recording. Okay, so this is the outline. We will do introduction, Java background, the system of running Java, data type, statements and scope and operators, conditional processing. So in the introduction, during early days of the internet, Sun Microsystems, which is a company, introduced the Java language. And this was in 1995. It's get a great attention because it's easy to use, it's flexible, and it's started to use it in many applications. So Java is the language most identified with internet and its friendly face and web. That's why it gets a lot of attentions. In this course, you will learn how Java originated and how it's used today. You will learn the language used to build a system that powers so much of the web application, running from e-commerce to online game, download music, and online banking. Actually, as we will see later, most of many applications today is using Java. So where can we see Java? It's run on servers, PC, mobile phone, BDG. BDG is something it's a digital assistant, as is written here. It's something look like mobile phone, but it doesn't. You don't make a call of it. People use it before the mobile phone, and still some as using it nowadays for any reason. So you can always see it in TV, embedded on the hardware. You see it in a lot of what we call today, especially with Internet of Things. You will see it in many things, in a smart card, smart refrigerators, and whatever is smart things at home. So it's, as they said here, it's Java everywhere. So we will move to the important part here. So it's the Java background. First, you have to understand what does object-oriented programming mean. Does anyone know what does it mean and how it is different than other languages? Sorry, I cannot just reply to the question now. I'll sit the time, ask if you have any question, and I'll answer it. But any question that is not related to what I explained now, it's hard to be answered right away. Okay. So the question now, I would like you to try to answer it. What is object-oriented programming? How it's different than other language, the procedural language, such as C++, for example. Okay. Yazid said, oh, okay, it's dealing with objects. That's great. Okay. So let's make it different. So let's assume you're having a university. So you write a code, you write line by line functions, you define variables, but you write it in a sequence, and each line depending on the other. It's like you write code for reading student's ID, the courses, who add class, who remove the class, which is great. How it's going to work with object-oriented, you will create like object for students and object for courses, for example. And you add the information here. You add a name. Sorry, it's hard to write there. You can add a name. You can add an ID, for example. The same things with the classes. You can write a name of the class, an ID, and so on. What's make them different? If you would like to use the same system in another university, or you would like to update it, this is hard to modify and it's hard to reuse. The procedural, also the structural oriented programming, both of them is hard to reuse or modify. But the object-oriented programming, such as in Java, you create an object, which is great. You can modify it easily and reuse it. So it's a reusable, okay? It's a reusable language. Clear? So we will see here what make Java different, or the most well characteristic of the Java. So it's reduce the complexity of C++. When you create, it's look like harder sometimes when you start creating an object, but then by the time you will find it's easier because you can reuse or modify. As we just said, it's object oriented, which is make everything structured around an object, and it's robust. And what does that mean? إذا بنعرفها بالعربي مستقرة. So what does that mean? It's not going to be affected by running it on different environments. Before you run the application, it's going to be checked by the application before it's run. So it's not going to be affected with the characteristic during running the application. It is secure because the application is already check the code before during the compiler, before you use it in your system. And it's portable. So you can use it in a different environment. Windows, if you develop it within Windows, you can then move it to the Linux, and it's going to work most of the time. It doesn't need change. Sometimes it needs a little change, but usually it's fine because Java, it can be easily transferred the important aspect of the Java. Okay, those characteristic is important to understand. You can get multiple choice of it. It's right, it's theoretical, but you really need to understand it to go ahead with a Java. Okay, so just please be with me with this one. If you have a question, I'll give you some times after this after finishing this sections. So portable, what does it mean? That means it's transferred. You can transfer it from one platform to another without change. Okay, it has high performance, so it's run fast. It's interpreted. That means this is connected with portability because it has a concept which is going to see it soon, that it's make it readable by most of the platforms without any change. So إن هي قابلة للتفسير على أساس إنك تقدر تنقلها من سيستم إلى سيستم أو من بلاتفورم إلى بلاتفورم. مثلا أنت عامل البرنامج بالويندوز وحاب تشغله على لينكس، بعد كذا راح تحتاج مترجم. الانتربريتد لكل سيستمز موجود مع الجافا. هذه الصفة أو هذه الميزة هي اللي تخليه قابل للتنقل، إنك تقدر تستخدمه في أكثر من بلاتفورم بدون ما تغيره. فقلنا الميزة الأولى أنه هو سهل، أنه هو object oriented، أنه هو مستقر، متنقل، secure، أو high performance. Then the other aspect of it is threaded. What does that mean? Like, it can do several things at the same time. So in old days, there's a system does, for example. When you do something with a does, you have to wait until it's finished, for example, printing, to do then something else. Today's systems, such as the Windows, the iOS, whatever, it's not going to help us anything. It's not going to help us if it doesn't support the threaded features, because we need to run several things at the same time. You run a music, you write something, you print something, all in the same times. This is what happened with this Java functions. Okay, so that's it, work in the same times. And then dynamic, Java programs can adapt to change in their environment even while the program is running. Sometimes, sometimes some applications don't allow you to update the application unless you shut down all whole systems and then update the systems. However, Java programs mostly allow you to do change without stop everything. So now we'll see. I believe most of you know about versions and additions. There's difference between versions and additions. So versions, there is a major version like 1, 2, and there is a minor version when you have a dot. So those are called versions. The addition, on another hand, is mean another type of the same application, like different types, helping different customer, different applications. So it's say, for example, there's a large enterprises business. It's not going to need the same Java that the mobile phone needs. It doesn't need the same Java that you are doing it as a student at the university, right? So for this reason, there are three types of, or three editions of Java. And this is important. So I'll try to help you to remember it. So G2 SE, so you see, it's a standard. So we having standard editions for simple use, like what we are doing. So, and then the second type is Enterprises Edition. So G2EE for a large scale system. And then we have Java Micro Edition, G2ME for mobile phone. So it's for the mobilities. It has the ability of staying in a small ships, for example, serving, moving around, and so on. So it has different capability than the standard edition have. So let's assume you get this as a multiple choice. How are you going to remember this? Look at this. You're going to remember this, right? Java standard, G2 SE. Enterprises, G2EE. Micro edition, G2ME. Different edition serve different needs. Okay. انت عندك نسخ مختلفة من عندك نسخ مختلفة من الجافا. مثلا الجي 2 اس اي راح تخدم الستاندرد للاستخدام العادي، الانتربرايزز للشركات الجي 2 اي اي اي، والمايكرو اديشن تستخدم عادة حق الاشياء اللي تخص الموبايل فون جي 2 ام اي. Okay. I'm sure you're going to remember this, guys. Get it as a multiple choice, okay? G2SE, G2EE, G2ME, okay? So let's refresh. Let's refresh what you already did in 1.5. I believe you already doing some of coding, right? So first, you have to write public, and this is the name. What do we have here? I need you to write it down on the chat. So you see, No, Yazid, it's not static. This is very, very, very important to understand the meaning and how the structure, the class, the object, the methods. I'm gonna to go with it one by one, guys. Okay, so just be with me. Great. So I see some right answer here. Good. So it's class. Good. Okay. So we have a public. This is gonna to decide if it's gonna to be seen by everyone. What's public and private? إيش معنى public و private؟ هل هو راح يتم النظر منه أو راح يكون مرئي بالنسبة إلى كل البرنامج أو just بالنسبة إلى نطاق معين؟ هذه public private. بعد كذا إحنا عملنا class. That's great. Those who saying class. So then you will have a class. You need to remember this. You need to memorize this. There's no option that you cannot. This is not something you need to understand it so you can memorize it. But you have to understand it and memorize it so you can write a code then by your hand. In the exam, you won't use the application. You will write it by your hand. So let's make an agreement. We will try to memorize it from the first lecture. Okay, guys? So we're having public. It could be public or private, depending if you would like to see it by the whole program or by the specific area. Don't worry, we will go over it later. Class, and what is this? This is the name of the class. So here, class, this is a keyword. Okay, good. So the class here is the keyword. And I need guys. So if you write class, see long. You cannot write long. So public class is a keyword. It's a small. It's a key sensitive. Okay, and then this is the name of the class. What do we have after that? Okay, just forget. What do you think is the output of this code? I don't need you to write the whole everything, and you don't have to write it, but ask yourself and just know it, and I'll show it to you now in a second. Okay, good. Okay, so some of you just said the first sentence and some said the second sentence. You will see the output is going to be both sentence. So what is this called? This is called the output. So when you run the class, you will get this output. Okay, so let's see some other concept in this code. Those are important concepts. So this whole things starting from this practice from here to here, this is whole the class. This is public as we just explained, but this is the class. And what is this called? I just wrote it down for you guys. So what is this line called here? From public static void main string argument. What is this? Good, methods. So let's just erase this. Okay, so it is methods. Good. And this whole line, the public static void main, it's called the method header. So the methods is not that only line. The methods is this whole part. This whole part's called method. This, the line, the green line, is the method header. Are you with me, guys? So the method header is the only line on the top. This is the method header. The method header plus the body, the method body. So the method body plus the method header is gonna to give you a method. Okay? And this is the name of the method here. The method here is just the main. We will see more example later. So you decide if it's public, it's a private. We will explain this later. Don't worry about it. And then here's the name. This is the argument here. All this line is called the method header. Inside this practice is going to be method body. The method body plus the method header is going to give you the whole method. Great? Okay. This is just an explanation of what I just said. We'll just go over it very quickly. It's just handwrite what is said. So we having introduced the class, which is called Hello World. Then when a program's run, this is important. Okay. And this is maybe need some, I add one more slide to explain this. When the program runs, the program you just saw, when this whole program runs, you can create an object after that, which is execute the code of the class. So there is a difference between a class and object. This class is defined as a public, which is main. The objects can be freely accessed by other objects in a large system. This is what I just said. Curly practice, it's going to explain the body of the class and the body of the method as we just saw. As I explained, the methods header, the static and void, we will talk about it later. And I told you already what's the methods body. One more thing here is what is called a statement. A single command to carried out. How you define this one? When you have a statement, it's going to be end with a semicolon. So if we back to our example, let's see, this is what I'm talking about. Sorry. Okay. Let me see. Good. So, so the statements end with a semicolon. And you always need to remember this. Some students forget. Let me tell you will noun students' mistakes. Okay. You write the code and you forget semicolon. And when it's debugging, you said, okay, there is an error. Teacher, I write everything right. What's wrong here? You just forget semicolon. This is one of the mistakes students many times makes. The other mistake sometimes they do, after writing the method header, they put semicolon here. If you write a semicolon here, you confuse the debugger. So the compiler would think this is a statement. So الكومبايلر لما راح يعمل run للبرنامج حقك راح يفكر ان هذه الستيتمنت انت خلصت انت حطيت السيميكولن هنا وانتهت الجمله حقك. You need to remember the class والmethod never ever have any semicolon or comma or anything after it. It always has those curly brackets, okay? Okay. So I told you there's an important point here. They said when you run the program, you will get an object. What does that mean? So if you're having a class, you may create a class, public. You write public here. sorry, and then public class, you call it, for example, fruit, and you write some variable inside it, methods. When you run, when you execute this class, this is what you write. When you execute this class, it is gonna to create some objects. Objects such as, if it's a fruit, it's gonna to get apple, banana, mango, which is an example, or it's not an example. It's the same type of the class you just created, which is a fruit. Another example is the car. You can create a class with a car. You put the car color, type, number of wheels, whatever. And then the objects, it will be different type of car. So this is the object. Here's another example. I'll just try to make it, because understand it clear on objects would make your life easier later. You have to understand what is the difference between the class and the object. So if you have, for example, class is dog, you put size, you put the age, the color, you create the class, but it doesn't have any information inside it. We'll go over this in a detail later, but it's good to know it from now, okay? So this is the characteristic, this is the variable, this is the information you have it, the size, the age, the color. And then here are the methods that the dog is going to do. Something, action is going to happen, the eat, the sleep, sit, run, okay? All this together called a class. When you create it, when you run it, you can run it and get different type of dogs. So you will have different information for different objects. Good? One more thing, when you create the Java code, you can write some sentence for yourself, for those who's working with you. If you are hopefully after graduated, you were working with your colleague, seeing some other people work. This is very helpful. You write some helpful information, like what is this program going to do? But you need to tell the compiler, I'm going to write this statement, but please try or act like you are not seeing it. Okay, يعني ممكن انك تكتب الجمله على اساس انك توضح لغيرك انت ايش تبغى، لكن بنفس الوقت تبقى البرنامج act like انه هو مش شايفها، ما يعمل لها debugging or compiling later. So if it's a block comments, more than one sentence, you use a star and those two lines. If it is only one line, you use the double side, okay? So inline command is going to be something like this. You can even put it at the end of the method or at the end of a class to say, this is the end of the class, this class explain this and that. And it's really helpful for you, for your colleague, and for your teacher when you send homework, absolutely. Any question until here? Everything's clear? Okay, for those hacks, could you apply it on a NetBeans? This is a lecture, so we have some information to cover. We will apply it on NetBeans. Inshallah, tomorrow we have a lab from 4 to 5. Okay, so please download NetBeans and we will try to have it tomorrow. Okay, so what's the question? What's your question? Sorry. Yes, it's a good question, Muhammad. It's good you ask if you can install any other platform instead of NetBeans. I need your help in the upcoming section. Okay, uh, you will maybe you can open your mic and explain what's the difference between IntelliJ and NetBeans in upcoming sections. I'll explain this soon. I have no idea if you use the NetBeans in 105, but make sure you download it before the lab tomorrow. Okay, guys? Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, here you go. So now we will talk about the system getting Java running. So how this all work together. So here we discuss the portability. Does anyone understand or remember what does portability mean? We already say this is one of the important aspects or characteristic in the Java. واحدة من الصفات اللي مرة مهمة بالجافا وراح تستخدموها again and again, and it's important to understand. It's the portability. ايش تاني البورتابيلتي؟ Okay, good. Does anyone, in addition to Sarah, have a problem? What do you mean, Sarah, you cannot see the lecture? I think this is clear. I open it on another device and I can see the lecture and the notes there. Just to try to get out and in again or change me with the machine. Okay, so the portability, it's mean right. Thank you, Ward. That is the right answer. And Lujane. So you can run it on many different platforms. So if you run it on Windows, you can run it in Linux and so on. But how? Why? This is what we're going to talk about it now. This slide and upcoming two slides have quite heavy information. If you here or there, just stay with me in this upcoming slides, okay, guys? So first, before we understand why Java have the portability ability, ليش الجافا عندها هذه خاصية التنقل؟ بعض البرامج مش عندها. So we will talk in details how this is work. Good. First, let's understand how the other application work. The conventional way, the most of the application work how. So most of the applications have the source code. What's the source code? The source code is that code that you are writing. That's the example. For example, that's the one we just wrote it. If you're having x.java, whatever language you have, this is the code you write it down, the source code, okay? Is it translated by a compiler? So you have a compiler. It is going to translate the code you are writing into a native code. What's the native code? The native code is the base language of the computer. After that is going to be executed to do some action. For example, if you're writing an application to do addition, x plus y, you write the whole code inside it. This is not the only things, but I'm just telling you at the end what is going to do. So it is do the compiler is going to translate it. This is the keyword, translated by who? By the compiler into a native code. What is the native code? Is the computer language. Then it's going to be executed to give you the results. After you read the X and Y, for example, 2 plus 2, it is going to execute it, ask you for the inputs for you're going to enter 2, and then you will get the result 4. It's going to get the input and the output. So how it's going to work? First, number one, you write the code. The compiler will translate it into what? Into a native code. And then what is going to happen is going to be executed. Good? I think it has a lot of... Okay, so let's see the steps. Number one, we said is you're going to write the source code. You have a compiler which is going to translate the source code you are writing into a native code. The native code then going to be executed. What is the problem with this? The problem that the native code here is not understandable by all the platforms, which is make it hard to apply the portability to move it from one to one. Good. So the native code that has been generated can be executed only. This is very, very important to remember. Only by a particular type of computer that recognizes. مرة ثانية، هذا الآن اللي تكلمنا عنه كله إن أنت راح تكتب كود، راح يجي الكومبايلر اللي معمول إلى هذه اللغة يحوله إلى لغة تفهمها الكمبيوتر، اسمها النيتيف لانجويج. بعد كذا راح يعمل لها run or execute، راح تشتغل البرنامج. إيش اللي المشكلة في هذه الطريقة؟ إنها فقط وفقط راح تعمل مع particular type of computer. يعني أنت لو عملت لها ديزاين على أساس إنها تشتغل في الاي او اس راح تشتغل في الاي او اس، تشتغل في الويندوز راح تشتغل فقط في الويندوز. هذه المشكلة مع بعض اللغات اللي تكون فقط ديزاين إلى platforms معينة. Good. The native language is the computer language. You can call it call it machine language. Okay? I wish you understand the first part, because if you understand the first part, that's great. We will talk about how Java is different now. Good? So how Java is different, that you have the source code, Java source code. You write a code, as we just said. For example, just an addition. حاب تجمع عددين مع بعض وكتبت فيهم كود. Good? Then it's translated by who? I put the blue for who? Who's gonna do things in the blue? Who's gonna to do this? Is the compiler. What is gonna to do with the yellow? Translated to a byte code. So the compiler would translate it to what? To byte code, not a native, which is intermediate form, which is translated by interpreter. So with byte code, it's not as same as a native language. It is between them, and it's need interpreter. For example, if you are talking with someone who's just speaking Arabic and someone who's just speaking French, sometimes you need what? Translator. إذا اثنين يتكلموا ما يتكلموا نفس اللغة فأنت تحتاج مترجم. It is similar, okay? So from a byte code into a native code is going to do it a native code for different platform. This native code is going to design only for one from the beginning. Maybe it's a native code for A. So it's not going to work for the B. A, for example, could be Windows, it could be Linux, it could be iOS, it could be whatever. So when you design this, those who's designing this is going to write it. The code is going to translate it to native code that is only work in one platform. For example, A, not B. If it's work for B, it's not going to work for C. So it's not gonna be too easy to do it or run it on another platform. How Java solve this? It's having this part. Sorry. Let me erase it. Okay, so it's have this part in the middle. And instead of translated right away into a native code, is going to translate it first to bytecode, then have interpreter to translate it to different platform. ممتاز؟ انت لما بتكتب الكود بدل ما يحولها الى لغه يفهمها، انت حولتها الى لغه يفهمها فقط الويندوز. بعد كذا لما تنقلها الى اللينكس ما راح تشتغل. فانت ايش راح تعمل؟ تكتب السورس كود يحولها الى البايت كود، بعد كذا تحتاج انتربريتر اعتمادا على ايش البرنامج او البلاتفورم اللي انت تستخدمه، ويندوز، لينكس، whatever. You have a different interpreter راح يحول لك هي الى النيتف كود. In this way انت ضمنت ان عندك interpreter حق كل platform, so you can run an application in any platform at the end. Okay, so how it's gonna work? You have a source code, it's translated to a bytecode using the compiler, and then we have the interpreter is the program that translated the bytecode into a native code. It's a specific native code for specific platform applications. So why you see that it can work on a different applications. Good. Exactly. This is what gives Java portability. So this is how it is going to choose. You can use it in a different application or a different platform. Sorry. Okay. So if you're having an application called XYZ, you write it. You have a class like the example we just saw. Compiler will translate it to bytecode. Interpreter will translate it to native code, and then at the end it's going to be executed. So let me see if you understand what I just explained or not. Oh, not this slide, the other one. So one more concept we will see, and then I'll see if you get the idea or not. Muhammad, who just asked me if he can install different platform instead of NetBeans. Okay, do you know what different what's, sorry, IDE, it's the second slide. Be prepared. I thought this is the slide. Sorry about this. Let's finish JDK and then we'll talk about the EDA. Okay. So Java Software Development Kit. It's an important aspect before talking about the IDE. Software Development Kit, what it is? Software Development Kit is the name. It's for Java and other software. Specifically for Java, we call it JDK. Important to understand what it is. What it is? It's the library. It's a prepared library. It's a pre-built library that lets you to use Java properly, okay? It is a tool are used for compiling and running a Java program in a variety of platforms. It's available before we see this. So in any software, there is a package called a library. If you don't install it, you cannot run everything properly. You need to install a library so you can execute the whole. Sorry, looks like someone on the waiting room. Okay. So بالمختصر انه يكون عندك مكتبة جاهزة الى كل برنامج على اساس انك تقدر تشغل البرامج سواء في الجافا او غير الجافا. فغير الجافا ممكن أن هي تسمى عادة Software Development Kit. إيش يعني Software Development؟ السوفتوير عارفين إيش معناها؟ يعني البرنامج، تطوير البرنامج، الكت، الأشياء اللي راح تساعدك على أساس إنك تكتب، على أساس تطور، على أساس إنك تشغل هذا البرنامج. فالسوفتوير ديفلوبمنت كيت أي لغة برمجة ثانية ممكن نسميها سوفتوير ديفلوبمنت كيت سبيسيفيكلي حق الجافا، بس غيرناها وعملناها JDK. So if you get any question in the exam about like you get a multiple choice what JDK means, you will know it, right? So it's a tool are used for compiling and running a Java program. We will see other concepts or keywords soon. So just remember this. Java JDK is the tool used to compile and run Java program. Multiple choice. And this is the whole things here. I'm going to explain it a little bit more visually soon, but let's go over them one by one. Imagine you don't see the second one until we finish the first one, okay? So the first one is the Java compiler. What it's called? Let's try to remember it together, guys, okay? Because if you get it like a multiple choice, you need to make a connection to remember the name. So the name here, JDK, it's coming from Java Software Kit. Compiler, C, it's coming from C here. And then you have a Java. So the compiler that we just explained, you remember in the previous slide, it translated the Java source code into bytecode. لسه شرحناها في السلايد اللي قبل إن راح يكون عندك source code اللي أنت كتبته راح يكون في compiler translated راح يحوله إلى البايت كود. إيش اسمه هذا الكمبايلر؟ اسمه Java C. Okay? So remember, C is coming from compiler. Good? The second thing include in an SDK or a GDK tool, it's include on it. So this is number one. Number two, you have Java interpreter. It's called only Java. So the interpreter translate and execute Java bytecode. Java interpreters are available for many different computer systems. Do you remember when we take a look here to interpreter, you could have 1, 2, 3, whatever different type of interpreter, which is called Java. Okay, here, Java. So you can have different interpreter depending on the platform you are working on. We have something called document generator. Okay, let's help you remember this, guys. Java DOC. Java DOC. So document. You get it from here. Document. Compiler, Java C. C, it's coming from the compiler. Document generator, Java doc. DOC. Then what is this going to do? Document generator process Java source file to produce a useful documentation, such as standards, description, and code. Do you remember when we talked about, okay, let's me back a little bit. Do you remember when we talk about this? When you use the comment, the generator going to read those comments you are wrote and generate a documentation for other peoples who are going to use the application after you. So it's going to read the comment and then generate documentation for it. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Java debugger, GDB. I know it's a little bit maybe confusing. Some of them having the full name Java, some starting with letter J only. So DP, debugger. Okay, helped to look for errors. This is the keyword here, guys. Good, thank you. Is a tool to help fix the bugs. Thank you, Muhammad. Then this is the Java debugger. So it's gonna to help you fix bugs or error. Some people just ignore it. Almost all coding programs have a debugger, but some people, when they get error, just freeze and freaking out. However, if they just take a look to the debugger, read the error, they will find out what's the mistake. They will let them know. You forget a semicolon. Doesn't make sense. Whatever, it's going to explain it. Okay. The Java disassembler, Java P. This is not gonna really help you. So this doesn't have really related name into what it is. Okay. So Java P is disassembler. What does that mean? I'll explain it in a picture soon. So what is it's gonna to do the opposite job of the compiler. Okay, so if you would like to remember, let's have the pen. Let me change that color. Okay, so this is opposite than this. So the compiler translates source code into a byte code. A disassembler read a byte code file, create using by compiler, and display the corresponding source code. So it's gonna to read a byte code and then gonna to display source code. So this is from source code into byte code. Disassembler, the opposite things. It is from, it's gonna to be from byte code to source. Anyone on the lobby? Okay, clear? Then here's something we're gonna talk about it more later too. It's the bullet viewer. It's called bullet viewer. The Java have two types: application, which is full code, and bullet viewer it's a code that can be added into the browser to run. So you need an bullet viewer so you can run it debugging Java without a web browser. Okay, so I need your help in this, guys. First, if I have, let's start this compiler. Write me down. What is called? The compiler. What is that called? JDK, Java C, GP, what it is? Good. Java C. And what does this do? Translate the Java source into a byte code. Good, guys. So we'll move to next one. Let's stop the Java C. The interpreter. What is it called? Within what compiler? Okay, interpreter. What is it called? Java. Great. It's not Java P, guys. It's only Java. The interpreter, only Java. It is important. This is theoretical things. You can get some multiple choice on it, okay? Just remember it. Compiler, Java C. Interpreter, Java. Translates and executes Java byte code. Next, disassembler. What is disassembler called? Okay, good, guys. Disassembler, Java P. It is not related to the name, but it's Java P. Disassembler Java P. And what is do? It is do the opposite work of compiler. So instead of the compiler translated source code to bytecode, Java P, which is a disassembler, read the bytecode and then displays it as the source code. Good. So remember those guys, okay? Java C, Java, Java P. Each of them, what does it mean? Okay, so this is what the last things I talk. If you remember here, we talk about something called palette viewer. Okay, so the last thing is called palette viewer. Let's see what's palette viewer mean here. Java program can produce two types of software applications. When you write the full code, the full application standalone. What does standalone mean? That it can run independently. ايش معنى application؟ انها تقدر تشتغل لوحدها بدون ما تعمل connection مع any other applications like الapp palette. You have to have a browser, run using the browser. The application is standalone. It can work by itself, run independently. App palettes are programs that can be included in web documents and browser. Okay, so how you can write a code, Java SDK or Java JDK. When you're using Java JDK alone, you can write. This is an all day. They used text. But not what we use, Muhammad. We don't use a text editor. We use something simplified our life. Good word. Great job word. It's IDE. So what's IDE? It's referred to Integrated Development Environment. What does that mean? It's such a tool. So this is one of the things you need to remember. What's IDE? Integrated Development Environment. Such a tool supplies with this course, which is they talk here in this sentence about the NetBeans. Usually IDE provide GUI. Anyone know? Okay. Good, Muhammad. IDEs, example على IDEs, NetBeans, IntelliJ, Eclipse, a lot. There is tens or maybe hundreds, okay, of IDEs. So ايش هي الIDEs؟ هي برامج تعمل على اساس ان هي تشغل مثلا الجافا، البايثون، السي بلس بلس، بس فقط بدل ما تستخدم التكست اديتور يوز الكوماند لاين، الشاشه السوداء، تستخدمي انترفيس يكون سهل الاستخدام، يحتوي البوتومز والايكونز بطريقه فريندلي تسهل على المستخدم استخدامها. So yes, so what GUI refer to, as what just Muhammad said, graphical user interface. ايش يعني graphical user interface؟ يعني تكون اشياء ملموسة وسهلة الاستخدام بالنسبة إلى المستخدم بدل ما يستخدم الشاشة السوداء. ففي برامج عدة منها النت بينز اللي راح نستخدمه في الكورس إن شاء الله. Okay, so GUI, a graphical user interface, or an editor, it's compiling, running, it's going to compile, run, and debug the programs. There is many IDEs available. Good. So it's already 5:20, and we will have been finished data type, statements, and scope operations. I'll give you 10 minutes break, guys, and then we'll back, okay? So now it's 5 almost 20. Let's get 20 minutes break, and then we will have half an hour before the end of the class. What's the data type as? Sorry. In some language, you can just leave it empty, and some default types will assign for you. But in a Java, is so important. Okay, so there's two categories: primitive and references. What's the difference between them? So primitive is a variable store the data value. Okay, the references, on another hand, are the variable does not themselves store the data, but are used to refer to objects. Okay, so it is just a refer any inside it. Other one is just a refer to the object. Okay. The data type size in Java are fixed to ensure portability. So you can move from between platforms. You have to have a fixed size of the data type. This is a nice picture to explain the difference between the different type of categories. Okay, so let me see if you understand it or no. I need your hand ready to write the answer. So you have two categories. Preference. So this one, when you write int age equal to 20 semicolon, is this a primitive or reference? You can write P or R to be faster. Okay, I see it, primitive. Who's else? Okay, is it? Who's else? Bushras. Rua. Good. Lujane. All you have is good answer, guys. So it's a primitive. Variables store the value. So you have the age. You can imagine like you have a books and you have the age. It's supposed to be full age here inside. And then you have 20 inside it. It's primitive. Primitive. Okay. The other type, variable holder reference address. It's like this one. It's just reference. So it's a reference to 20. You can call something like X, and then you will just have a reference. Like you can imagine it's dot, and it's to refer to some place. Okay. And the variable variable and then value. Declare value and primitive value. So you can relocate. Those memory location can be made only for the table type. This is involved two steps. So first, this part of the memory is going to be reserved for variable name called x. I don't have any value inside. Is this declaration or initialization? When I didn't say equal to 20, I didn't say it's equal to anything. I just said int x. It's a declaration or initialization. Good, guys. Declaration. So declaration, when you just said int x, declaration creates a variable of. However, initialization, this refers when you first start something useful in a variable memory location. So في البداية أنت فقط تعرفها. تقول فقط تعريف. Declaration. Initialization راح تعطيها قيمة. So let's see the example. Declare two variables of type into initial them. Okay, tell me. Int, my int. Declaration initialization, D or I? Int, my int. Declaration. Good. Second example and third example. Here, this is a declaration too. Int, my other int. This is a declaration. And this is a declaration, sorry. And this is initialization. Here, you just declare it. فقط عرفته. ما أعطيتها قيمة. Initialization, you assign a value into it. So this is initialization. And the last example is initialization as well. Here are the list of some integer type. So you can have a byte, short, integer. Sometimes they are signed. Sometimes they are not signed, unsigned. So what does signed mean? Mean that you can hold, it can hold positive or negative. So this is what signed means. So when you say signed, it can be positive or it can be negative. And on another hand, unsigned type or value does only have the positive. And sorry, the charts show the size of each type. So byte is 8 bits, short 16 bits, and so on. And here is the range of it. The primitive data type, another type is shards. It's called char, as most other language. It's allow refers single characters are donated by a value included with a single quotes. And you need to remember, on Java you use only single quotes. So in some language, so if you would like to write any name, or for example, a or letter here, because it's a character, you write it only in a single quotes. Some other language using double quotes for character and string. So this is, it could be one of well-known student mistake during encoding. So don't use double quotes, it's only quotes, okay? A character variable can be assigned any value in the Unicode character set. I need you to go by yourself, and we don't have enough. Okay. We don't have enough time to show this. I need you to go and search what's Unicode, and if you don't know what it is already, try to search what does a Unicode mean and how you figure it out. Another thing is escapes. In some characters, for example, if you would like to write n, if you write n by itself, the compiler will think it's only n. This is a clear example, for example. In some character here, if you write only U00A9, the compiler will think it's typed by itself. So for this reason, you have to put backslash. So if you put backslash and then write those letters and numbers, you will get a printable character, the C. If you put it with N, it's going to go in your line. If you would like to print the codes during the printing, you have to put // and this. Otherwise, what's going to happen? The compiler will think that you are trying to write a character, but you forget the other one. Okay, you get what I mean? So إذا ما عملت الباك/، الكompiler راح يظن إنك عملت codes and you forget the other one. So you need to make sure that the compiler understands you mean printing only one codes, like this. The letter for backslash is like this. So if you only putting one backslash, you won't print backslash. So to tell the compiler, I would like to print backslash, you put backslash before it. Good? Floating point is something look like a double, but has a shorter long. So this picture is make it clear. So double have 64-bit. The float have only 36-bit for single versions. Okay, I'm supposing to do it other way, but it's okay. So unfortunately, okay. Let's back to the presentation. Okay. I was planning to let you doing this, but we will do it so fast because of the time issue. We'll try to answer this question, answer those questions. Which of the following attempts to create initialized variable would cause a completion error? You can still answer, but I'll try to do it fast. Like if you very fast to write the answer, just write it down. So let's go with the first one. Integer j equal to 1.2. Is this right or wrong? It's wrong. Why? Because this is not integer. You have a dot here. It's a double or float. Okay, so it's not an integer. B, int k minus 200. This is correct because it's sign, so it could be minus or plus. C, int OK equal to 1. This is true because you just putting a value and putting number 1 on it. Then number D is wrong when you say int boolean 1. Why? Because the boolean is a keyword. ما تقدر تستخدم keyword محجوزة في السيستم وتعمل فيها اسم للفاريبل. احنا قلنا هنا type الانتجر وبعد كذا الفاريبلز names. So ما تقدر تستخدم keyword تكون محجوزة للفاريبل name. فأساس كذا هذه راح تكون الاسم حقها خطأ. Good. Then char my char sorry line استخدمنا one quotation. You can write anything inside it as a char, which is right. ممتاز. بعد كذا f char c equal to minus 10. This is going to be wrong. Why? Because the char doesn't get a minus. You have to have, for a char, you have to have a code. Like if you're putting like this, code, so it's going to be right. char E equals to E. This is right. And then H. Char D equals to, you put between one quote, backslash. This is false. Why? Because you're supposed to have two. Okay? Number H, you're supposed to print backslash. You're supposed to have okay, sorry, just get this disconnected. Yes, you need to get double. Okay, you need to get both of them together. Okay. The other things we're going to talk about is casting. What does casting mean? It's converting. Converting. So you have one type and you would like to convert it to another one. How this can be done in two ways. The first way is automatically. Java will do it for you. Java does it for you as permissions. So you just do it, and when you declare a variable for double and then assign integer on it, will take off the decimal parts already. And sometimes you need to do a casting. How you do casting? You put, for example, int in front of the expression. So if you're having a double, like in this example, you put int and then you will get double. In this case, you will lose this part. So the answer here is it's going to be 2. You're going to lose some of the part. This is important. So you need to remember when you do casting. So if you you declare here, you declare double value, declare int value. Then you initial a double value with 2.8, and then you casting a double value using an integer. So an end value will have only 2. Good. The other example here, if you having different number A35, B12, and D13, and then you declare char C. So C, if you adding them together, 35, 12, and 13 is going to be 60. You are not going to, it's not going to print 60 because it's char. So it's going to go to the Unicode chart and see 60, it's referred to which character is going to refer to this character is it's going to print the character instead of the number. Okay. In some cases, you have to do casting, in which case, when you have the right-hand side, so if you're having X and you have Y, so the right-hand side, for example, Y, of the equal occupy the largest space in memory. So this is occupy the largest space in the memory. Then the type you are assigning to, you're going to assign it to X, and X holding smaller space in the memory. So you have to do casting before Y so you can save the space of the left hand here. If you have not specified a cast in case your cast is required, the compiler will produce compilations error. That is possible loss of operations if you don't use the right casting. So we will start the statement and scope, but I'm not sure if we're going to complete it all. We just have less than 10 minutes. We will start with it next week, hopefully, if we cannot. So the statement and scope of operation. What's the statement? The statement like this, like a declaration. You remember when we talk about the declaration and initializations? So those are statements. You having the data type, you have a value name, and then you have a semicolon. Statement is a unit of executable code, usually terminated by semicolon. So at the end, you have to have a semicolon. Okay? So this is a statement. Then there's something called a code block, include a group of statements in a closure of curly practice. So this is a code block. Okay. Local variable, there are variables that are declared inside the code. Local, do you remember when we said a public, a private things? And this is something it's I could say related or have similar idea, but it's quite different. We said local variable, they are variables that are declared inside a code or block, and they are valid only inside the brackets. We say that our variable scope is a region enclosed by brackets. So, for example, you initialized or you declare a k here, int k, and then you open another brackets. You said int j equal to k. This is invalid. Why? Although you already declared k here. Because you cannot see it because it's out of this cube. So you can imagine it has an eyes, it has a boundary. So عندها حدود ممكن تتخيلها أن هي موجودة في محيط معين مغلق. فهذا المحيط المغلق هنا كله بالسور هذا هي cannot see anything outside it. So he said int j equal to k, it cannot say k here. So this is invalid. Okay. So we'll operator all primitive data. We will stop in this slide. This is the last slide we will go with. Operator all primitive data type that are provided in a Java associated with a set of operators. The example, an integer or floating type, it's all coming with addition and subtractions. Sometimes it's just a single argument. Sometimes it's two arguments together. So it's called a binary. And there is arithmetic operators. So like a multiplication, a division, a reminder, addition, subtractions. All those are operations. You can use it on the Java. Okay. We haven't complete the statement. So we will complete it from here today. I would like to keep you guys more. If you have any question, we just have 4 minutes. Please don't be hesitated to email me or ask me any question if you have any. Just remember, guys, next session, you cannot enter without your university email. Those who's entering with the guest today, it's only today. Next class, please contact the ID if you have any problem with your email. Just contact the IT support. I cannot let you in using another email. Okay, guys. طيب بخصوص السلايدات والكتب المفروض انها تكون موجودة على LMS. إذا كنتوا تواجهوا مشكلة في LMS ممكن تتواصلوا مع IT support. Me myself, I haven't accessed the LMS yet. السلايدات I already sent it by email. يا أسيل أنا already أرسلت الدرس الأول والثاني أرسلتها بالإيميل. So إذا كان يعني لسه في مشكلة في LMS أنا راح أرسل أي معلومات راح أرسلها على الإيميل. بخصوص الكتاب ما تقدروا تعملوا له access إلا على LMS. I have not really I don't really have an idea about الإكزام. لسه الأمور مش 100% واضحة، بس الأغلب إن الاختبارات راح تكون حضوري. That's why, guys, you really need to focus. It's not going to be online, most likely. No one knows until then. But until now, everyone knows it's going to be in the camp. So حضوري راح تكون موجودة الاختبارات. Yes, الكتاب فقط إلكتروني، ما في كتاب مطبوع للأسف. بكرة اللاب. Don't forget about it. Try to download the NetBeans, please. And try to solve the exercise. I don't know if you have it في LMS. If it's not, I'll try to email to you guys قبل المحاضرة. Since the LMS down. The recording will be available في LMS إن شاء الله. هل راح يكون midterm ولا quizzes? If it's going to be midterm or quizzes, I don't really have a clear idea about it. I'm waiting for the coordinator, the BCC, to let me know. You know, every semester, especially with current situation, مع الوضع الحالي, every semester there is a new procedures and rules. So I'm just waiting for, as you. يعني ممكن كل شيء تتوقعوه. هل ممكن يكون midterm, ممكن يكون quizzes, ممكن يكون حضوري, ممكن يكون online. Nothing's clear. Nothing's clear yet. No one knows. You're welcome. You're welcome. Anyone like, yes, yeah, sure, you can leave. Anyone would like to leave, just leave. I'm just here if anyone have any question. If you don't have any question, you can leave, guys. It's already 6:01.